I'm Samantha Ropes. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of ANZUP Cancer Trials Group. I'm sitting here with Professor Gerhardt from the University of College London and the John Black Charitable Foundation Endowed Chair. Welcome. Thanks, Gert, for coming over to Australia for us.
Thank you for inviting me. What a great event. Really enjoying it.
How are you liking Adelaide?
Well, I've not seen much of Adelaide, but the convention centre's great and it's a packed room. It's been a great day.
We've got a great view out there for the river that hopefully you can take a walk along.
Yeah, certainly.
So thank you so much for being one of our international faculty out here at the ANZUP Cancer Trials Group annual scientific meeting. Tell us a little bit about what you spoke about earlier at the translational research session.
Yeah, I was invited to talk through a paper published in Nature Cancer a couple of months ago, which is a 10-year story, a 10-year journey studying ctDNA and MHSPC. We set up a prospective observational cohort national trial study. We're about 12 centers in the UK, where we collected samples before ADT, before and then at point of start of an ARPI or docetaxel. When the study started in 2018, we're still giving docetaxel alone with ADT. Now that's uncommon or shouldn't happen, but about half of or a third of our cohort received docetaxel with ADT, 2/3 received ARPI with ADT. We took plasma every month. So what have we learned? A, in high volume metastatic patients, the majority of patients have high ctDNA prior to start of ADT, but a third have very low levels or undetectable amounts. B, on starting ADT, levels drop precipitously within weeks. The fractions dropped around 1%, and ctDNA is detected at those levels in 40%. And then on adding on ARPI or docetaxel, levels drop further. And after 2 cycles or 3 cycles of treatment, about 30%, 25 to 30% of patients have ctDNA which is detected. And so point C, that detection is prognostic. So patients who have ctDNA at that point have a survival, median survival about 24 months, compared to a currently unavailable or inaccessible median survival. So prognosis is significantly different. Now, the reason we ran the study was to test these questions and then implement these in a prospective trial where we use ctDNA to decide who should receive treatment intensification. One of the questions I was asked was, can we use ctDNA to de-escalate? And I don't think so. I think there are sensitivity challenges with ctDNA which do not allow us to distinguish good from excellent responders. I think ctDNA is going to be important to identify patients who are not benefiting from treatment, whose prognosis is poor, and who should receive an additional treatment at that point, rather than waiting for confirmed progression on first-line treatment.
So that was really interesting, and I was at your talk, and it was a fantastic talk.
Thank
So,
you.
you talk about the sensitivity of your ctDNA test. Do you see this getting better, and eventually one day we could use it for de-intensification?
So that's our next experiment. We're going to compare 3 different assays with what we have done. So I should say that the assay we use was bespoke for prostate cancer, but not patient specific. So we used the same panel covering 90 genomic regions, looking for copy number change. And as you've just implied, that limits the sensitivity and other technologies may improve. So we're starting to test patient-specific probes, which to date has been challenging in prostate cancer because we do not remove the large amounts of tissue that's done in bladder cancer, which have allowed the patient tracking probes in a much more accurate way. But yes, newer technologies are emerging that could allow us to improve sensitivity.
Yeah, fantastic. And there was another point that you made in that talk, which is about the variability in detection ctDNA in these patients. And there could be real biology going on with ctDNA not being released from tumor cells. Can you comment on that?
Yeah, I'm really intrigued because when we take samples on treatment, there's the treatment response confounder. But by collecting samples before treatment, we've eliminated that. And in the cohort, all had high volume metastatic disease. The majority had visceral met in this group. And despite that, a third are undetectable by our assay, and the assay goes down to 1 to 2%. So I'm not saying there's no ctDNA, but it's certainly very low. In contrast to in a third, ctDNA is above 20%. So there's either, as you've said, biology that influences ctDNA release, or maybe it's a clearance. Maybe some patients are clearing ctDNA faster, and that we need to understand that balance if we want to introduce these tests into practice.
Completely. And as a biologist myself by trade, I've been fascinated by that point. The other thing that you were talking about in your talk is the benefits of ctDNA over potentially standard PSA testing at the moment. How do you envisage ctDNA moving forward? Do you see this as replacing PSA, or do you see it as a combinatorial integration of PSA testing, ctDNA, and imaging, which we also have?
Yes, so firstly on PSA, I don't think we need to replace PSA. It's a couple of quid. It gives useful information, but PSA alone is clearly not good enough. And what our studies show, the ctDNA provides independent information from PSA. And there's a lot of biological reasons. PSA is solely a measure of AR activity. ctDNA is providing additional or alternative information. So I think the two will be used in a composite. We will still have PSA there. We need to layer other tests onto that PSA value. And that includes imaging. So our study did not um, include PSMA PET or sufficiently well whole body diffusion weighted MRI. And the next generation of studies need to start to do that to tell us within 3 to 4 months of starting ADT, does this patient need additional treatment, or can they be left alone on that ADT RP backbone? Because as you know, in ENZA-MET, 50–60% of low volume patients are in remission at 8–9 years in your long-term follow-up. So we do not want to give those patients lutetium or docetaxel or anything additional, but we need to know who they are.
Yeah, right patient, right treatment, right time.
Correct.
So that's really fantastic, and it's wonderful that you come there to present that paper at our premier meeting. I'm going to say premier meeting in Neurogen liver cancer. There's some other work that you're collaborating with ANZUP on. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I'm so excited about this. 10 years ago, we left egos at the door and we agreed to use the same assays on our samples. And now we're in a position to cross-validate findings we make in our cohorts across Stampede, ENZA-MET, and Charted. And that's going to change practice. And the most recent discovery Chris Sweeney presented at ASCO a couple of weeks ago, which was Decipher predicting benefit from docetaxel. We now have the same results in Charted, in Stampede, and ENZA-MET. If only one of those studies showed that result, that's not going to change practice. But 3 trials or giving this or showing the same result, I think that's incontrovertible. And I would like us to start to implement these tests now into our practice. And that's because we've chosen to work together.
And isn't that amazing? And it's wonderful, me being the CEO of this wonderful trials group, that we're running trials that are truly changing practice in collaboration with other large global studies. So thank you so much for the collaboration. Gert, it's an absolute pleasure to have you out here in Adelaide in Australia. Thank you so much for your contribution to our meetings, and we hope you really enjoy your stay.
Yeah, I'm loving it. Thank you.
Thank you.